Hello aspirants, this is me Yasmin Gill presenting to you the PIB highlights of 8th of January. So you can follow all these videos on this particular link of an academy and you can also rate and review them. And how can you rate and review them? Quickly go on an academy, you can search PIB January. So thereby under PIB highlights course in English, you can just click on the course and under review section, you can write a review and by the way of stars, you can also give your star ratings. So beginning, firstly we have history, culture and geography section. Under it a small question pertaining to society. I would say it is neither linked to culture as such, so it's mainly linked to society. So what do you think can be the possible hurdles in converting brain drain to brain gain? So we know recently also this has been said earlier too, but in the current Pravasi Bhartiyas inaugural ceremony also Prime Minister has spoken about converting brain drain to brain gain. Now you have to tell me what are the possible hurdles in it. Next we have under society related issues forest rights. Very important topic. See, because of a Sunday, there were very less topics on PIB. So I've covered two broad topics. One is related to forest rights. The other one we'll see. So this is a very important one. Plus you can skip it in case you want to do only the PIB portion. So see, why are we talking about forest rights? Firstly, it has been taken from Economic and Political Weekly. Because this very year, I mean by 2016, obviously this year has just started, right? So in 2016 in September month, so there were two people who were killed in peaceful demonstration near Kaziranga National Park. So they used to reside in a village and they were killed in police firing. So that is the main part of it. And also Guwahati High Court had ordered for the eviction of the local people from Kaziranga National Park. And while their eviction and the consequent protests, two people were killed by police firing. So what is important here is how the Forest Rights Act, a very popular legislation, is being implemented at the ground level. So maybe you will not encounter a question particularly related to this issue, that is Guwahati High Court's order. But yes, this is a very pertinent question, that what are the issues that plague the implementation of Forest Rights Act. So let's go through whole of the story. It's very easy to remember things in the form of a story, okay? So thereby you'll also understand all the issues pertaining what all did happen. So what happened was there were people who were protesting against the eviction. What they were protesting against was, okay, we will resettle, but do give us proper resettlement procedure and also give us adequate amount of compensation. So this was one demand. And secondly, they also tried to stop the eviction by saying that they belong to revenue villages. They have proper voter identity cards and ration cards to prove their residence, and hence they should not be shifted from their home residence. Next, what did the court take as the line of thought and gave such an extreme order? So Guwahati High Court, firstly, it attacked on the very core provision of the Forest Right Act, which is right to minor forest produce. So what it said was that it rejected the claim of grazing rights, terming it as a mere license which can be cancelled at any time. So this is one big flaw in the thinking of court. Next, also High Court formed a team for detailed analysis, but in this particular team, all the officials were mainly from forest officials and other bureaucrats. There was no local level participation in this particular community. So it was not a multi-stakeholder community. Next, again, High Court also gave a line of thought that government had given this land to you for social forestry and not to stay and encroach. So the local residents were termed as encroachers here. Also, as far as the legal aspect goes, the revenue villages are immune from eviction. They cannot be considered to be a part of forest, and their particular local residents, they cannot be evicted. So, but they were evicted. There was a revenue village whereby this protest was taking place. Also, High Court used a similar judgment by Supreme Court, whereby Supreme Court said that under Forest Conservation Act, mind it is not Forest Rights Act, it is Forest Conservation Act. Forest is not something which is included as in dictionary sense, but also includes any area which is recorded in government record, irrespective of ownership. So whoever is residing there, once you consider it as a government recorded forest, no community can claim a right over those land, and he or she has to be evicted. So this was a Supreme Court direction, but it was very primitive, and in fact this judgment was reinterpreted in various other judgments of the Supreme Court. So what are the flaws in the High Court's decision making? Firstly is the particular definition of the forest. See, it has relied on Forest Conservation Act and a very old I would say judgment by Supreme Court. It could consider Forest Rights Act, it could consider other progressive decisions by Supreme Court, but it did not. So this is one thing whereby it did not understand forest and its definition in proper sense. Secondly, There is a proper procedure under Forest Rights Act related to settlement of rights, which involves Gram Samiti and its appropriate consent, and it also has the power of the final decision. But whichever committee did the High Court constitute, it had no such local members, and forget about the Gram Samiti as a whole. Also, a big fact which I did in the previous slide also, which is revenue villages were declared a part of forest, which is not supposed to be done. Then lastly, they were thought of as encroachers, or you may say is that what the exact words were used, they were suspected communities. So in the larger public interest, so these suspected communities which were I would say accused of poaching, they had to be shifted or evicted. Also, see, all this represents at a larger level a very conservationist thinking, whereby human beings is thought to be something, or thought to be someone who cannot coexist with wildlife. Though, see, most of the conservationists initially used to think that in protected areas, human interference and human residence must be prohibited, but with time it was realized that to create human-less protected areas was not viable, because it is very difficult to relocate these villages and their people to some other location. Also, High Court's decision has actually turned the wheel of forest rights struggle overall. Also, this is a clear-cut case of forest department rights, I would not say forest department rights, the monopoly which forest department exerts versus the community rights which have been granted so very in a struggle way by FRA, that is Forest Rights Act. So this is one thing. And lastly, you can also understand the sort of monopoly which forest departments execute. Just to cite you an example, in Sundarbans in West Bengal, they have a complete monopoly over fisheries and honey collection. So in case, say, for local people, they have to collect fisheries and honey collection. So firstly they have to bribe the officials of forest department. Only then they can go and collect something which they have legitimate right to. So this is how the forest right is being implemented, and there are flaws from two big parties. One is the forest department itself, which is acting as a big hindrance to forest rights, and the second one is judiciary itself. Judiciary's narrow line of thinking that human beings cannot coexist with wildlife, plus they are thought of as encroachers. Also, revenue villages are being declared as a part of forest, and subsequent eviction is taking place from revenue villages, which should not be there, because revenue villages are immune from eviction and they're not part of forest. So these are some valuable points which you can mention in the implementation of Forest Rights Act and the subsequent problems. Also, under Polity and Governance section, we have Pravasi Bhartiyas. So in case you have to tell upon or speak upon the efforts taken by Government of India towards the Pravasis, so following are the steps. For example, mainly for security, particularly in the West Asia, we have inaugurated a Madad portal whereby online response will be given to any sort of help which is sought from ministry, plus extending the concept of help to Vasudev Kutumbakam. For example, in various of the disasters and emergency situations, we have not only evicted our own people but also various other international communities. Other than that, immigrant clearance has been made easier, plus registration of foreign employers has been made mandatory so as to prevent any sort of exploitation later on by employers. Also, opening of a Pravasi Bhartiya Kendra in New Delhi, then a skill development program, Pravasi Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Also, now what has happened is that descendants of Girmityas, they have become eligible for OCI. So basically what has happened is, I hope you are aware of this term Girmityas, people who were forced to leave India during the time of British Empire or the British colonialism to countries such as Fiji, Mauritius, etc. So these were the people who were known as Girmityas. Under a bound system, they were actually forced to leave the country and forced to work mainly in plantations, particularly in sugarcane plantations, etc. So for them particularly, it has been very difficult for their 4th and 5th generation to get the right of being an OCI. So these procedures have been simplified. Also, there is a scheme known as Vajra, the full form being Visiting Adjunct Joint Research Faculty. So this is being conducted by Department of Science and Tech, and this is to enable NRIs to participate in the research and development in India. So this is something which you can also quote under Brain Drain to Brain Gain. Also, we have India Community Welfare Fund, then we have No India Program, Brain Drain to Brain Gain, and lastly, whatever are the investments by PIOs, they are now deemed to be domestic investment. Next, we have a national conference on e-governance to be conducted in Visakhapatnam with the core theme as digital transformation. Who will conduct it? Very important, Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, plus Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, obviously with help of Government of Andhra Pradesh. Next, under economic section, we have random collections. See, this slide is not particularly that important. Such deep questions might not be asked, but still, to be on a safer side, we'll quickly go through them. First is mutual agreement procedure. So in case any company or any individual faces a dispute regarding a double taxation avoidance agreement, he or she can use this particular procedure. Refund banker scheme, any form of refund which has to be given to any taxpayer can be directly put into his bank account or dispatched via speed posts via this particular scheme. Lastly, Project Insight. This is to promote voluntary compliance of tax. Next, we have Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana implementation issues. Very, very important. So this is from Down to Earth magazine. So what it has spoken of is, see, right now government, what it did was, when it began with the scheme, it pooled in one government insurance company and 10 private insurance companies. But with time, it realized that the scheme was performing poorly, and so it pooled in more 4 government-owned insurance companies. But what is the problem is that, see, the companies are understaffed, and plus they are functioning on a temporary basis. They are not functioning under proper heads or proper institutionalized mechanisms. So we'll go into this properly. See, for example, the new companies which are roped in, financial health of national insurance is already very poor, whereas Oriental and United Insurance, again public sector, they are operating without any head. Also, institutes are understaffed. If we look at the private insurance, they have also not performed in a very good way, although they were given states whereby risks were already very less, but still their performance has been not up to mark. As far as the first agriculture insurance company which was pooled in by government, it was known as AICL. So this particular company comes under administrative control of Ministry of Finance and supervision of Ministry of Agriculture. There were high hopes from this company, particularly it being a government company. But see, how it functions is that it can be very well understood. In last 6 years, 6 chief managing directors have been appointed. And see, what is the issue is that agriculture insurance in itself is very complex. So to understand it takes very much of time. So by the time a particular CMD understands it, he or she gets away to leave for some other plum posting. Why? Because this is a very challenging sector. Also, people do not wish to stay in this particular, that is agriculture insurance companies. Also, AICL itself has been operating at half of its strength, that is, it is understaffed. So these are all the implementation issues which can come in the way of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Under environment section, we have world's largest street light replacement program. So currently it is running at South Delhi Municipal Corporation, but it is proposed to be extended. Also, this is the world's largest program, and it is implemented by Energy Efficiency Services Limited, a joint venture under Ministry of Power. Also, do give me your views related to pedestrianization of Connaught Place. So, CP, very popularly referred, and now there will be no vehicles allowed. So, do you think such measures will work? And is it not a curb on the residents' right to movement? Also, just think about this particular MCQ, and you can get to know its answer in the MCQ course as well. So, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the course. So, if you actually did and it did benefit you, do not forget to rate and review. Thank you so much.